A warm welcome to Diplomatic Channel. I'm Millicent Walker. These are the highlights of the program this week. Finland joins NATO military alliance, becomes 31st member of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, but Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov says the enlargement of NATO is a threat to Russia's security and its national interests, and that Russia will be forced to take countermeasures to ensure the country's security. Plus, former President of the United States and frontrunner for the 2024 Republican nomination, Donald Trump, indicted, appears in court in New York, pleads not guilty to the 34 felony charges. But before that, let's check in on other top stories in diplomatic circles.
Russia has defended its decision to station tactical nuclear weapons in Belarus, rejecting criticism of the move by NATO Secretary-General Jens Stoltenberg. According to Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov, Russia's nuclear deployment to Belarus is a response to NATO expansion. He maintains that NATO was the one expanding towards Russia, not the other way around. Therefore, Moscow had to take steps to defend its own security. President Emmanuel Macron of France has asked his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping to bring everyone to the negotiating table and help stop Russia's invasion in Ukraine. Mr. Macron says it isn't possible to have a safe and stable Europe as long as Ukraine remained occupied. France calls for the resumption of political negotiations and settlement of the crisis through diplomatic means to have a lasting peace in Europe. In response, Mr. Xi called on France to continue to support the multipolarization of the world and the democratization of international relations, opposing the Cold War mentality and confrontation, and work with China to deal with various global challenges. Tunisian President Kais Saied has rejected what he calls foreign diktats from the International Monetary Fund, the IMF. The country has been in debts with stalled talks over the bailout package. Tunisia reached a staff-level agreement with the IMF for the loan in September, but it missed key commitments, and donors believe the state's finances were increasingly diverging from the figures used to calculate the deal. The IMF has pushed Tunisia to remove state subsidies on basic goods, particularly fuel, but so far the government has not raised fuel prices this year, apparently to avoid public anger as inflation reached 10.3%, at the highest level in 4 decades. The Gabonese National Assembly and Senate has revised the country's constitution, reducing the term of office of the President of the Republic from 7 to 5 years and the election from 2 to 1 round. This comes after a round of voting by a joint session in the country's capital, Libreville, where 85% of votes backed the proposal, well above the qualified majority of 2/3 required. The amendments bring all mandates in line at 5 years and make all elections single-round ballots again after the last changes to the constitution in 2018 set 2 rounds of voting. China has launched military drills in response to a much-anticipated meeting between Taiwan's President Tsai Ing-wen and U.S. Housekeeper Kevin McCarthy. They met in California after President Tsai was feted in New York with the Leadership Award. Ms. Tsai hailed their strong and unique partnership, and Mr. McCarthy said that arms sales to Taiwan must continue. Beijing, in turn, has vowed a resolute response and has sent warships into the waters around the self-governed island. Taiwan, it appears, is caught in the middle of a dangerous love triangle.
Finland has joined the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, raising the Finnish flag for the first time at NATO headquarters in Brussels. The country becomes the 31st member of NATO with the submission of its accession documentation, wrapping up its historic strategic shift into the military alliance following Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Finland's membership is one of the most important moments in NATO's recent history.
Minister Havestad, Pekka, you have attended many meetings, but this is the first time you sit down there between France and Estonia, and it's really a great privilege to have you now as a full-fledged member. And as we stated so clearly also outside, soon we also have Sweden as a full-fledged member of our alliance.
It's a big day for Finland, of course. And I'd say it's a win-win situation. It's good for NATO also. But our next goal is, of course, to get our good neighbor Sweden to the full membership.
Joining me now is former Nigerian ambassador to Finland, Sweden, Denmark and Norway, Dr. Godknows Igali. Welcome to Diplomatic Channel.
Thank you very much.
Let's begin with the big question. Why Finland joined NATO, especially why now?
Why now? Well, as you know, Finland is one of the countries with the largest land boundary with Russia, and they also share a bit of maritime boundary on the Baltic Sea. And historically, Finland was under the imperial rule. But I think the immediate impulse for going to join NATO was the invasion of Ukraine. Sweden and Finland have always maintained neutrality and non-alignment in their defense policy. They've cooperated with NATO, but they've not joined any military alliance historically. The Finnish population, public opinion changed dramatically. And as at late last year, about 78% of Finns wanted their country to join a strong military alliance that can guarantee them more security. So that is the main impulse why Finland has joined.
Finland is one of the most powerful arsenals of artillery pieces in Western Europe. Now that it has decided to ditch its neutrality, join the alliance, what should we be expecting, do you think?
Well, it's a win-win situation both for NATO and for Finland. As you know, the Finnish population is 5.5 people, but the country is rated as the 22nd largest economy in the world and one of the world's leaders in ICT, in technology, in industrial machines. That's why you see that such global brands like Nokia, the world's largest manufacturer of cranes and turbines and so on. So it's a big industrial country to be the 22nd largest economy in the world. And so does it cascade into their military industry, where Finland is considered, even despite the military strength of France and Germany in Europe, to be one of the countries that is most military ready. They have possessed hundreds of heavy howitzer equipment, heavy mortars, and hundreds of rocket launchers and armored personnel carriers. Its naval fleet of over 240 ships is one of the big ones in Europe, and with an air force of over 120 F-18 and F-35 military aircrafts, and so many other hundreds of less tactical military aircrafts. So it is considered to be one of the countries that is military terms, has the largest artillery in Western Europe. Its armed forces itself is very small, 24,000 personnel, but by going by the country's history and the availability of technology, they have shown a capacity to deploy about 280,000 fighting force within days. So it's a major asset to Western Europe. It's a major asset to NATO. And mind you, they share a very large land boundary with Russia. And by this decision, it means that the Western Alliance, the NATO alliance, can be able to put down boots in Finland. They can put their tactical equipment in Finland, which is sharing a border of about 1,300 kilometers with Russia. That is what Ukraine wanted to do, because if Ukraine joined the NATO alliance, by the terms of the alliance, they can be able to deploy military equipment on the territory of Ukraine, which shares the boundary with Russia. The same thing with Poland. Hungary, let me say Hungary, which shares a boundary. Now there are a lot of NATO troops in Hungary and with military bases. The same with other smaller countries like Latvia, Estonia, and the Baltic states. So that is why it is a big advantage to NATO, because they come with a strong tactical strength to join the alliance. And on the other side, the alliance will now provide a bigger umbrella, a bigger shield and cover for Finland.
So essentially, you
30
see
countries, so 30 countries, the military strength of America or Britain or France, Germany, will join with the other about 20-something countries, making 31 countries to defend them in case the need arises. And on the other side also, they themselves, the Western Alliance, now has a direct access, both for espionage purposes and for when there's a need for tactical deployment, they can easily move into Russia without having to cross any country or violate their territorial integrity.
So essentially, you see, that ironclad security guarantee with regards to Article 5 that sort of defines the collective defense clause, one for all and all for one. But then, while that is happening for NATO, we have Russia's nuclear deployment to Belarus. Do you think this is a sort of response to NATO's expansion?
Russia, from the time of Gorbachev, easily opened up to agreeing for them to unwind the Soviet Union, unwind the Eastern European Bloc, unwind the Warsaw Pact, which was equivalent of NATO that was formed in 1953 to take care of the common defense and security interests of countries in the Eastern Bloc. But after the time of Gorbachev and all the subsequent rulers, from the time of Putin, we have seen a return to trying to assert Russian hegemony in the area. But again, at the time of discussions from the mid-1980s between Gorbachev and from when he came with his perestroika and the glasnost and discussions with President Reagan, the impression, the understanding was not this kind of rapid expansion of NATO into the territories that hitherto belonged to the Eastern Bloc. But we have seen systematically that the Western Alliance has continued to move closer, right into the backyard of Russia, or almost into the sitting room, not even the backyard, because two countries like Ukraine is almost intermingled with Russia. A lot of Ukrainians are ethnic Russians too, and there are ethnic Ukrainians in Russia also. The same thing with Belarus. A good percentage of their population are ethnic Russians. So these are countries that are very close. But then Russia is beginning to sense a gradual encirclement of the Western Alliance around them. And that is why they're looking for areas from where they can be able to also be a nuisance to the Western Alliance. Because, like you know, Belarus is also strategically located. It shares border with Poland. Then it means that Russia will also want to be in a place where it can have a tactical, have an advantage of being able to enter into NATO territories. That's why Belarus is important to them, because it shares border with Poland, Lithuania, and Latvia, all of which are NATO members. Will this make Finland safer? Well, it's a mixed bag, because, like the Russians have said, this was not a wise move. The idea of not having joined a military alliance by the founding fathers of Finland at the time was to avoid this kind of situation where they become like the center of attention, like what Ukraine is facing. So if you ask me the question, which was implied in your question, will Finland be safer? Well, it depends, because it's making Russia to feel that we are being encircled. And mind you, Russia is a major world power. And with Russia, we have their own friends, China.
Do you see Ukraine joining that alliance anytime soon? And what does all of this portend for the future, especially with this fight that continues, Russia's invasion of Ukraine?
Well, like you know, President Macron is in China. The solution to the war in Ukraine is not more weapons. It is intensification of diplomacy. And that diplomacy, we needed China to take charge of the diplomatic process. China had to be involved, more directly involved. And this visit by President Macron, the Chinese have reluctantly told him that, well, they would see what they can do. China is a traditional ally of Russia. And if China takes an assertive position with regards to making Putin to know that, look, let us talk. Let us see where we can agree with you, where we cannot agree with you. And if China takes that position, I think Putin will not want to be isolated to the extent of losing his friend China. So where does this take us to? Where it takes us to is the need for more diplomacy and diplomacy.
We'd like to thank you for joining us on Diplomatic Channel.
Thank you very much.
Let's take a break now. Diplomatic Channel continues in a moment. Stay with us. Former President of the United States, Donald Trump, has been indicted. The frontrunner for the 2024 Republican nomination pleaded not guilty to 34 felony counts of falsifying business records after an investigation into hush money paid to an adult film star in 2016. As the former president made his way to the Manhattan courthouse for his arraignment, the world followed his every move. In a historic appearance that followed strict security protocols, Mr. Trump pleaded not guilty to the charges at a hearing in a lower Manhattan courtroom, denying all wrongdoing. Mr. Donald Trump is the first former U.S. president in history to face a criminal charge. He says the only crime that he committed was to fearlessly defend America from those who wanted to destroy it. Joining me now is the former ambassador, deputy head of mission, Embassy of Nigeria, Washington, D.C., USA, and also former permanent representative to the Organization of American States, Ambassador Hassan Mohammed Hassan. Welcome to Diplomatic Channel.
Thank you, Millicent.
Ambassador, what's your assessment of all that you've observed as former U.S. President Donald Trump's case proceeds to trial?
Yeah, the assessment is Donald Trump, as an individual, he has, in his history, gone through over 4,000 litigations. So he's used to court processes. But this one is a unique one. And going by his body language, when he appeared before the judge, is humbling. So I believe it has touched him, but we have to wait and see the outcome. But he has shown some humility, even though after the hearing and the adjournment of the case, he went back and was talking so many things. But these are things that, with time, will have a full assessment of what the impact is.
But are we expecting political battle lines to harden in any way? I mean, the case has pulled the country into uncharted political territory. What do you think comes next for Mr. Trump and his defense team?
Yeah, certainly there will be the political positions are being hardened. The Democrats and the Republicans. Already, the Republicans and Donald Trump are accusing the Democrats of witch hunt, political witch hunt. So, and at the court premises on Tuesday, yes, on Tuesday, there outside the court premises, there were people shouting for and against. So that is just a precursor to what one should expect of as the case proceeds.
The U.S. has had high-profile national legal dramas and high-stakes political campaigns. Now the American public have both at the same time with this case. In the months ahead, do you see a jarring mix of legal maneuverings, court appearances, alongside campaign events, as the former president navigates this most unusual waters?
Certainly. There will be developments as the case proceeds, and the political atmosphere is going to be heated up, and there will be accusations and counter-accusations, and it will take a long time before this case is resolved, because till now is adjourned to December, and the lawyers are getting ready, and the cases that, going by history of cases in relation to Donald Trump, I don't see this case coming to an end very soon, but definitely it will have an impact on the political atmosphere in the United States, because the supporters of Donald Trump that are Republicans, of course, they won't take it lying low.
But if you had a crystal ball and you could, foresee the future, what do you think his chances are? Because we've seen an appeal court judge dismiss Ms. Stormy Daniels' defamation suit and even award Trump payment for legal fees. And this lawsuit by Ms. Daniels is separate from the 34 charges filed against Mr. Trump.
Yes. The case, the appeal court case against Stormy Daniels is quite different from what obtains now. This is a criminal case, and is defrauding the New York State. Is Donald Trump versus the New York State, and they have come up with 34 cases, and indicating that in different instances he has committed offenses that are inimical to the state of New York. Going by what has happened, the DA of New York knows very well, yet he brought the case up. So I believe he has seen something that is different from the Stormy Daniels appeal case.
So I'll take it, Ambassador, you don't have a crystal ball to predict, the final verdict, but can a criminal conviction prevent Mr. Trump from either running for president or from reclaiming the Oval Office?
Yeah, all court cases are meant to correct some misdemeanors by individuals. So I don't see this court case, if it runs counter to what is expected, that is what Donald Trump, if Donald Trump is convicted, I don't think they will allow him to go free. And the Democrats and Republicans, they are on each other's throat, each other's neck, and they want to pin the former president, the 45th president, down. So I don't see a situation where he will be going scot-free.
Do you think that this legal battle, will it prove a major distraction for the Republican Party? And does it sort of add a new layer of turmoil to the party's primary?
Yeah, certainly. It will add some kind of turmoil to the already existing situation. Donald Trump and the Republicans, they are upset, and they are accusing the Democrats of putting stumbling blocks or maybe stopping Trump in his track of towards the elections of 2024. The Democrats are working towards that. That's the assessment of most pundits, especially Republicans.
For Trump himself, Mr. Trump says this is political persecution. Do you think that perhaps, you know, it is what it is, or, you know, maybe a hint of that, considering all he's gone through as president and even afterwards?
Yes, Trump will coin any language that will work to his advantage. And he has the full right to say whatever he has to say. But I believe the government has some legal cases against Trump. This is not the only one. There are many more that are likely to come up in due course. So Trump will want to say is political witch hunt, political whatever, but there are some elements of fact in the case that is before the judge. And one thing, you know, Americans don't go for nothing. If they see that is not a case worth pursuing, they won't pursue it in the first place.
And Ambassador, final question. What do you think the global community can learn from this?
Yes, the global community, especially the democratic nations, this is a test of the Constitution of America, a test of the Constitution of any country that is democratic. The feeling that nobody is against the law is being put to test, and rightly so. And this will impact on nations all over the world, because America is being considered as the numero uno of nations. And the president of America, be him serving or former, is subjected to the legal proceedings that are going on. So I believe that it will have impacts. It has some message, and the world should be aware of what's going on in the United States for the betterment of their respective constitutions. And even in Nigeria, I believe we stand a very good chance and an opportunity to learn. The feeling that some individuals are above the law has now proven to be wrong, since an American president is being dragged before a judge and he's humbled.
Essentially, no one is above the law. We'd like to thank you, Ambassador Hassan Mohammed, for coming on the program.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's an honor.
And that's Diplomatic Channel this week. You can watch this and other episodes again on our YouTube channel /Channels Web and Channels Playlist. I'm Millicent Walker. I'll see you next time.